Digital Foundry have got this massively wrong, in my opinion. And in this video, I'm going to point out a trail of things that I think Digital Foundry have got wrong when it comes to actually how we play video games. Now, this is obviously going to be very critical of Digital Foundry's analysis in many cases, but it's not actually critical of the people at Digital Foundry who do a great thing in bringing objectivity to how we assess video games. However, I think their slavishness to objectivity sometimes means they really often get it wrong when you bring in the subjectivity of video games, which makes all the difference because video games are art. So this is obviously to do with DLSS 5. I'm showing you here like an image of Grace, and you know, Digital Foundry have said that it's hard to argue that the version with DLSS 5 just doesn't look better. I think so many gamers will prefer the non-DLSS 5 version. I think some people will prefer the DLSS 5 one, especially people who are new to the series or don't have, understand the characters so much, etc. But people who are more fans of the game, they are probably going to prefer the non-DLSS version. And this is something that Digital Foundry miss. Now, previously, so I'm one of the biggest sim racing YouTubers in the world. I go to CES, I go to these big events, I speak to, AMD and Nvidia and people like that. And they understand it at those companies. So you have to really ask them the right questions, and you can't just read off their spec sheet. Not saying this is what Digital Foundry do, but I think they've been caught out here in a big way, and it's not the first time. So there's a few things that Digital Foundry have done that I've noticed as one of the biggest sim racing YouTubers that don't really make sense to me. So firstly, I don't think when PSVR 2 came out, Digital Foundry were clear enough to people who were going to play Gran Turismo in PSVR 2 that it's not really a 4K experience in the headset. And showing like captured footage of the screen preview of PSVR 2 is not representative. You need to put cameras down the lenses, which I do, and explain to people how reprojection works and how things are going to look a little bit blurry and muddy, etc. The second thing that I want to mention is that when they did a video on Forza Horizon 5 coming to PlayStation 5, actually they didn't say that the performance version is clearly better on PS5. The amazing thing about Forza Horizon 5 on PS5 is that the performance version at 60 FPS is incredible, and there's no real need to play the quality version at 30 FPS. The 30 FPS version, if you pause the game and you take a screenshot and load it into a video editor and zoom in 8% on a piece of grass halfway across the map, it might look slightly better, but any racing fan gamer will know that the performance version is just better. And I didn't feel they said that, which was also just missing the subjectivity that gamers feel. And the other thing I want to mention is that when PSSR came out on PS5 Pro, again, I made very big comparison videos, and I was surprised in Gran Turismo, for example, how PSSR was not a better experience in many examples because it made things blurry and muddy and aliased, and things like dashboards, etc. So we're using dashboards to see how many miles an hour we're going, and it didn't really cope well with stuff like that. I didn't feel like they really flagged that enough or really mentioned it enough. That's my kind of take on it. You let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree. But I feel like what's happening with DLSS 5 is a similar thing. Whereas if you pause it and you zoom in 1,000,000% at someone's eyelash and say, oh, there's less jaggies on this one that has DLSS 5, you're missing the point for most gamers, which is we're playing video games. We know we're playing video games, and we want to have the best experience knowing we're playing a video game. When I'm playing Forza Horizon 5, I'm not playing a photographing simulator. I'm basically never stationary, admiring the scenery in a stationary way. I'm always travelling at speed. When I'm driving in Gran Turismo, I'm often driving in the cockpit, so it's very important to me that I can read the dash. And I'm going to compromise on other stuff if it means that I can read the dash. It's partly why actually 120Hz mode is also really good in Gran Turismo, because for a racing game like that, you can pick out your apex and stuff a bit cleaner. And then going back to PSVR 2, most people are going to expect this to be, if you call it like 4K, most people are going to expect it to look like a 4K monitor. But if you put your head right up against a 4K monitor, it's going to look very different if you're sat 2 or 3 meters away. And again, these are subjective things on the way that we play these games, like what's important to us. So with the DLSS 5, going straight onto that topic, I feel bad for Nvidia, actually, surprisingly, even though they've made my GPUs really expensive, because I feel like the technology is very interesting and is very capable. And I feel like the fact that Digital Foundry, people are saying, it's not even my words, people are saying that they've come out way too strongly in favour of this, it hasn't really been a nuanced take, means that this technology is now going to get absolutely battered by the community. Like, this technology is like toxic to a lot of the gaming community, but it is quite interesting if it's done in a tasteful way and in certain circumstances, and there's disclaimers, and if it is realizing, we don't get to choose whether it's realizing the developer's vision. The developers get to choose whether it's realizing their vision, because only the developers know their original vision. Now, the counteracting point here is that, and this is a really interesting thing, the sentiment against DLSS 5 has been that it's inverted commas AI slop. It looks like AI slop. Now, I've made videos on this channel about AI sim racing channels that have actually just copied my footage and done an AI voice over it, so I'm very much involved in this conversation on YouTube. But again, I do think it comes down to whether the developer thinks that what DLSS 5 is doing to their game is authentic for what they want to achieve. And if it is authentic to what they want to achieve, and people are like, as we're all entitled to do, say that it's AI slop, then that's fine. At least we know, then the developer gets clear feedback on that. If DLSS 5 is used in a way where we don't know if it's what the developer intended, or it's held up, for example, like Digital Foundry is like, well, this is so technically impressive that we should all really just be impressed by the end product. Like, we should all love this because it's so technically impressive that how it does this upscaling. And that completely eradicates the subjectivity of how we enjoy video games. And I'd actually be really interested to hear from you in the comments whether you like the DLSS 5 stuff or not, because there will be bubbles everywhere, and this looks like it is going to be the future technology, like when the 60 series cards from Nvidia, and that's not just a 6090, but presumably it will filter down to the more, inverted commas, affordable cards. This looks like it's going to be the future, and so it's really important now that gamers actually have a voice and can give that feedback. And that's the other thing, the more I go to these events, like when I went to CES and spoke with everyone, the companies value our opinions, for example, YouTubers and influencers, whatever, because we are listening to you. We're listening to you, the viewers and the commenters and the gamers. You're the most important people, and we're able to collate all of that and give very clear feedback. So I want to hear from you what you think of this DLSS 5 technology, whether you think it is just uniformly impressive, or you think it's uniformly bad, or you think it's nuanced. Whatever your take, it's a completely balanced take, because you're the people that are putting your hands in your pockets and buying these games and wanting to have good experiences. So let me know what you think in the comments, and make sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, because I do a lot of tech videos these days, a lot of analysis and putting cameras down lenses and looking at the subjectivity of what I'm playing, so I make sure I'm understanding it from the perspective of, for example, myself, a hardcore sim racer, and what we're going to enjoy. I'll see you in the next one.